This week, we wanted to take a break from our usual recipe-driven videos and focus a bit on meal prep logistics. See, unlike in Western cooking, where meals tend to revolve around one large, filling main dish, Chinese meals tend to feature a number of smaller, medium-sized dishes. The concept is important because, in my opinion, the source of a lot of home-cooked struggles with stir-frying abroad seem to stem from overly ambitious portion sizes. The rule of thumb here is to make roughly one 300 to 500 gram dish per eater. So 3 people, 3 dishes, 8 people, 8 dishes. So for the cook then, the question naturally follows of how best to actually pull that off. So today we wanted to walk you through how we personally think about that problem. The meal in front of you was made for a family of 4 in mind. It's a pretty good mix of stuff, and this was all sorted within 1 hour, which is a pretty realistic time frame for a dinner, I think. So we usually start thinking about 1 or 2 dishes that we really want to eat, then fill in the meal with less intense dishes from there. So, for example, recently we got a batch of this really high-quality puning tofu from Shaoxing. It's a super delicious tofu that is best enjoyed deep fried. So that will fill our intense dish quota. From there, if we're deep frying anyway, well, prepping some meat for stir fry via passing through oil is pretty trivial. Boneless chicken or beef are 2 meats that can really benefit from that. So we'll take advantage of the opportunity to make a classic Cantonese beef with Gailan. Now, Gailan, of course, also really benefits from a blanching. So if we've already got a pot of bubbling water there, why not steam over it too, which we'll do in the form of a plate of marinated pork belly. And finally, after we stir-fry everything, cleanup can be made much easier by making what I lovingly refer to as a wok soup. More on that in a second. So we'll round things out with a simple fishball, lettuce, and seaweed soup. Now, of course, just those probably wouldn't be enough to feed 4. So we've also got 2 of the cook's best friends, white rice and snacks. White rice helps round out a meal, but it also serves the valuable function of being something precisely 0 effort that people can fill up on. In the same way, having some simple snacks around is also a nice idea. Here we literally just bought a bag of peanuts, but some homemade pickles would be even more classic. And to finish things off, fruit is always a nice idea, and lychee season just started here in Guangdong. So for us, we start with rice. Now, like most people in China, we use a rice cooker, which is an insanely worthwhile gadget to have. They're cheap, make perfect rice every time, and free up your stove and, most importantly, your brain to focus on other dishes. I know some people aren't crazy about unitaskers, but this is rice we're talking about. I've never met anyone that's bought one that didn't find it at least useful. Now, after we sort the rice, we start rinsing our vegetables because, here at least, they'll need a good soak. If you're living in the West, this probably isn't quite as important, but living here, we really gotta get off any pesticides. So we are washing some herbs in here, grabbing our lettuce that we'll need for the soup, and also prepping our Gailan, which will need their stems separated and the fibrous bits peeled off. Then as that's soaking, we move on to meat, because meat, for the most part, needs time marinating. For this meal, prepping the meat meant first slicing both our pork belly and our beef into thin sheets. One tip to make this a bit more painless is to first toss your meat in the freezer for about a half hour before cutting, which is actually what we did for the beef. Then, of course, after that, you gotta scrub down your cutting board and knife and thoroughly wash your hands. We'll be continuing to sort dishes as we cook, because obviously no one wants to be greeted with something like this after dinner. Then we can marinate that. Besides the usual suspects, this pork belly is also gonna get steamed with Mianchi, which will be the dominant flavor of the dish. The beef, meanwhile, we're just marinating like we showed in our stir-fried beef 101 video. As an aside though, any time frames we give you for marinating are usually just for reference. When cooking for ourselves, we basically never pay attention to how long we actually let it sit. So then after a wash of the meat hands, then we're back to the veg that's been soaking. Now again, Steph has this very labor-intensive way of rinsing vegetables that involves multiple quick soaks, scrubs, refillings of the basin, and so forth. For those of you outside of China, you probably don't need to be as paranoid, but again, here it is best practice. So the lettuce and the Gailan are already good to go, we just need to slice our herbs. These guys are Chinese chives, and they'll be used as a base of a dipping sauce that we outlined in our Tofu 101 video. Dirt simple. You basically just mix them with salt and fish sauce and come back to it with water in a few minutes. Then the scallion gets sliced, which will get used with both our steamed pork and our soup. Now, we're almost done prep, so now's a good time to get our deep frying oil up to temperature and our water up to a boil. Then back to the chopping board. For beef, we'll just smash our garlic because life's too short to mince unless you have to. Ginger gets peeled, and on the same note, we'll just smash a bit for the stir fry, but then julienne some for the steamed pork. Last up, we'll just mix a basic seasoning sauce for the stir fry. When stir frying, you've got the option of seasoning step by step or just adding everything all at once in sauce form. The former gives you a bit more flexibility, but the latter is a bit more grab and go. So now with everything sorted, we've got some time to do a couple more dishes until our pots are up to temperature. Now, I'm starting cooking here deep frying the tofu, because tofu does need some time to get nice and crispy. Quick note that having an infrared thermometer like this makes deep frying in a wok especially painless. I know that these guys aren't super accurate, but then again, neither is the old bubbling chopstick method. Then as that's going, we can blanch the Gailan. As you can see, we're at more of a steaming water level than a blanching one here, but it doesn't really matter. We just need the Gailan to deepen in color, then we'll shock them under running water. Then with an eye still on the frying tofu, we can move the pork belly over to its steaming plate, mix and spread it even. And even then, we've still got time for a few more dishes and the requisite hand wash before taking out the fried tofu and tossing it over some paper towels. Now, for the steam, this sort of steaming setup is like the easiest thing in the world. You literally just toss the plate on, cover, and let it go for like 8 minutes, which should be about enough time to sort out a few more things. See, we've still got that frying oil out, so we can do our 20-second pass-through with the marinated beef, being sure to leave it in a strainer afterwards so that any excess oil can drip off. You can then dip that frying oil out through a strainer and toss it back into your trusty oil pot. Then we can plate the tofu, sort some more dishes, and by that time the pork belly should be about ready. And with that, 2 out of 4 dishes are already done. Of course, at this point we do need to give the wok a quick scrub. While washing your wok during cooking is a case-by-case basis sort of thing, trust your judgment. You still won't need too paranoid of a wash though, a small film of oil will still be okay. At this point, the old school way to complete the job would be one of those cool little wok brushes, but a paper towel serves the same function. Now, that long yao routine we always do, starting with a piping hot wok, that also serves the purpose of making sure there's no leftover moisture in your wok from rinsing and such. So then, just stir fry like you always would. Aromatics, liaojiu a.k.a. Shaoxing wine, back in with the Gailan, quick mix, beef, quick mix, and seasoning. If you're using a sauce like we did today, just make sure that it goes in over a lower flame, or else the cornstarch can actually stick to the wok. Mandatory drizzle of toasted sesame oil, and dish number 3 is done. Now, that wok soup. See, instead of washing the wok at this point, we'll be going in with water. I don't know if this is something that other families do too, but Steph's parents will often whip up quick soup just like this, and to me it's pretty genius. Here we're just doing the Chaozhou fishball soup that we outlined in our fishball video, using frozen fish balls and bringing that up to a boil. Then while we're waiting, we can sort our last remaining dishes. Then once everything's up to a boil, we can toss in our seaweed, our seasoning, our lettuce, then take it out and finish with some sesame oil and some scallions. What makes this so awesome is that after that quick soup, the wok is so much easier to clean. Just a quick scrub, and then that can dry over a flame. Now, forgive me for airing a small pet peeve here. See, just look at this kitchen. There's a common refrain that I grew up with that anyone that didn't cook should clean up and do dishes. And while I do think that's right, to me that means these dishes, the table dishes, not the dishes used when cooking. The cook should at least mostly clean up after themselves as they go. And now we can just fluff up our rice, serve everything up, and even on a weeknight, I think that's a pretty good, balanced, reasonable meal to fill up 4 people.